March. Here is the rainfall totals for the past week. Let's start in the southeast. That was a full week ago where we had eastern Victoria hit and these parts of New South Wales. But the new rain that started over the weekend and has gone through this week is all of this that is up the top. So huge, huge falls here in interior parts, even southwestern parts of Queensland. So massive amounts of rain coming in from onshore winds, bringing in that tropical moisture from the Pacific Ocean, running into low pressure, and day after day after day, that being a fairly stagnant weather pattern. So that's what is producing that rain, and this is how much we have had. In terms of the heat that goes with that, all of the heat has been over in the southwest where we haven't had any rain. We've had this area through here that has been slightly above average, but not at the very southern coast here, and slightly above average in Tasmania. But the rain certainly has an effect. When you've got all of that cloud and all of that rain falling day after day, it does make it cooler than average. So that's where we were up to here. Let's have a look at where we are now. Now, I've got a new thing to show you this morning, which is pretty exciting. I'm going to put this back here to 6:30 a.m. It is in Melbourne time, so Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. And what we have is, I'll just let this play. Now, the satellite is moving. The radar isn't yet. They're still working on that on the team. But that is the latest radar image that I've got over the top there. But there is our satellite. It's not just a static image anymore. It is moving. This is the start of the next big phase of what we're going to have here at Jane's Weather. And as you can probably tell by my smile, I'm pretty excited about all this new technology that we can bring you. Now, on this map today, there is obviously a lot here. We've got rain that is now starting to move down through New South Wales. Let's zoom in a little bit here and have a look. So we've got all the leftover cloud that is under and through there. We've got high cloud coming down into the southeast. We've got big rainfalls coming in here between Mackay and Townsville. We've still got some of that wet weather out in the west, but a little bit of a drying trend near the borders there. And down into New South Wales, we've got all of this happening in southeast Queensland, so just steady rain coming through. This into New South Wales. Into Victoria, nothing as yet, perhaps something later in the day up at that top border. Into South Australia, might just get a little bit, but it's only in the very far east, and Tasmania isn't seeing anything yet, just that high cloud starting to come down. Over in the west, it has been near 40 degrees in Perth for the first 4 days of this week. Today, mid-30s, and then there's a bit of a change on the horizon. If you're after wet weather, Sunday is the day for you. Let's go and unpack all of that, but first of all, here are all the current warnings. Now, we don't have legends yet. Ignore this one that's up in the top left. This is very development that I'm showing you, so this is work in progress. Let's, first of all, we'll take off the severe weather, we'll take off the thunderstorm, and quickly, here is the cyclone that's up in the northwestern part, likely to cross later on today and bring in some more moisture. We'll talk about that more in a second. That is north of Broome. But otherwise, let's have a look at the flooding that we've got here. So I'll turn that one off. I'll turn the radar off so we're not distracted by that. All of the coloured numbers in here, let's just zoom into the northeast. That's how much rain since 9 a.m. So they're the rainfall totals. So here's some of the big falls in the southeast, the big falls along the coast here. We don't have the huge falls that we had yesterday. Let's have a look at the 24 hours to 9 a.m. yesterday morning, 91 in through there, 24 in through there. So we have had some big falls in through those parts, but here is into this morning. Now, let me turn that off so we're not distracted by that either. This is the flooding situation currently. We don't have a legend yet, but we've got minor, moderate, major. Red is the major flooding that is moving through Queensland and now starting to come in New South Wales. So this is just how widespread this system is, and also a bit of a sneak peek in what we're going to bring to you at Jane's Weather. Okay, that is that there. Let's go and have a look at where we're heading from here. So here are our maps. We've got the AI forecast that's made up of all of the individual models that you see on the site. So the AI forecast is our machine learning and AI machine that learns from what's happening on the ground near you and delivers a better forecast for your particular spot. Over the top of the rain areas that we've got here, we've got pressure. So our pressure levels, they're the connected lines here. So there's our low pressure system that is sitting over Queensland. We've got winds that are pushing all of that moisture in from the Pacific Ocean, running into that low and producing all of that wet weather. Now, what you'll notice here is it's all to the eastern side of that low pressure. And wherever that low goes, all of that rain is to the eastern side until it can move out to sea, and then it comes around and hits it on the other side. We'll watch that in action in a second. Here is the cyclone that's up in the northwest, and we'll watch what that is likely to do in terms of wet weather as well. Got high pressure that is sitting out here over the Tasman Sea, bringing warmth down into the southeast today. Otherwise, high pressure is back over here, and we're starting to get a change that will be coming into the southwest. Now, let's have a look at, first of all, let's go the entire time period here. So this is from early today through to week Sunday, so the full 10-day outlook. You can pretty much draw a line. You could take a ruler, you could angle it like this, and you go from the northwest of the country down into the southeast. If you are to this side of that line, i.e. the eastern side of the low pressure, then there is wet weather. If you are to the southwestern side of that, you miss out because it's a boundary. That low pressure acts as a boundary. It takes all of the moisture, it turns it into wet weather, but it doesn't let it go over to the other side. And high pressure is blocking that from coming any further southwest. So these are the totals expected over the next 10 days. Still huge falls here in Queensland, but much less in the southwest. We've had it, it's moving on. We've got all of this to come through New South Wales. We've got this that is moving off the coast. We've got it wrapping around just into the eastern parts of Gippsland here in Victoria. We've got a little bit that's coming into Tasmania. You'll see that bigger falls in the west mean it's coming from the western side. And we've got this one that is coming down from that cyclone bar. Look at that. It stops there over the interior. High pressure is in the way and it doesn't let it come through. That is something that has been happening for a very long time now, and it is continuing in this current week ahead pattern. All right, so there's our totals. Let's have a look at that day by day. So here we have Friday. You can see it up in the top left there. So this is the total for Friday. Here's where our low pressure is later on tonight. So this is by 11 p.m. on Friday night in Melbourne time. There's our cyclone that is crossing the northwest coast. So this is today coming down into these parts here and not making it any further south at this stage. Here we have Saturday. The low is now all the way out through here. So it moves from southwestern Queensland to off the coast of Sydney in 24 hours. So it's a quick movement through there. All of the wet weather as it came through is to the northeastern side of that low. And then as soon as it moves offshore, we start to get the wraparound just into the west there. Okay, so let's have a look at that one moving through. We'll focus on this one just for the moment. I'll zoom in and we'll come back to that in a second. So here we have Saturday. Let's move into Sunday. There it is just off the coast there. So now all of the falls are wrapping around that low, coming in the back side of it there, which is southeast New South Wales and far eastern parts of Victoria, not making it through to Tasmania. So the path of this low is dictating where that rain is likely to fall. We've got a great dividing range that runs straight down through there, so you can't get it going any further because the ranges block that wet weather from coming through. So I'll go back to so you can watch it. There it is there, coming down to the eastern side of that low, moving in, there we go. And so we get it just moving through Victoria here, and then into Sunday, it's just in that southeastern part, just light falls moving over to the west. Moving there on Monday, so there it is, it hasn't moved very far, still coming into that corner there. Tuesday starting to ease. So that's what that low is likely to do as it comes in. Let's have a look at further afield. We'll go back out to here. Just move that down. All right, let's go back a couple of days. So here we are at the end of Friday. There's our low. There's our tropical low. We've got high pressure down here. By the end of Saturday, there's that one. Let's just focus on where that's going to go for now. So we have Saturday, Sunday, there it is. Monday, there it is, high pressure blocking it from coming any further south. Into Tuesday, there it goes, high pressure blocking it. It's moving eastwards, moving here through Queensland, so another dose on the horizon for there, and then moving away as we go through Thursday. So that cyclone, they can be a great source of moisture for the southern part of the country. High pressure is likely to block it from coming through to that area, and this is another feature for the northern parts of the country. Okay, let's move back. Let's have a look what's happening in the southwest. Here we are on Friday. Nothing today, still got that leftover heat. Moving into Saturday, starting to see some wet weather happening through there. There's a trough running down there. You've got high pressure over the bight. Sunday, that's the day when most of the moisture comes in. Now, it's not the exciting falls up here, but it is something that has been dry for quite a while. So that is, what are we looking at? 2 to 5, 10, maybe 15, just into the 15 to 25 for these lucky parts that are right in the middle there. As we move into Monday, just the lingering of that, not connected to this moisture here, that is on a different path. Here we are Monday in the southwest of the country. Tuesday, all gone, cold front moving through, so there may actually be some chilly weather in behind that, but not much wet weather at all. All right, That's kind of the pattern that we're heading into. And hopefully I've made it very clear that if you're on that wrong side of that low pressure, you're not seeing that wet weather. Why you're not seeing the wet weather? Because it acts as a block. How can we move that low pressure to move it to the areas that are still in drought? We can't do that because high pressure is really enjoying sitting right there and blocking these systems from coming to it. Okay, let's have a look at, there's our totals, just so you can see it one more time. And we are here up in those big figures for all of these parts across the north, these parts of New South Wales, that's what's coming through Friday, Saturday, Sunday. These parts into the southeast, not moving any further west. So the big drought areas here between Adelaide and Melbourne, they are continuing on the fairly dry side. A little bit of activity over in the southwest as that, first of all, and then as that change comes through in the middle of next week. And then you've got this coming into the southwestern part of Tasmania. Okay, let's have a look at that as a whole. So this is from one of the weather models, which is the Euro model. This is for next week, so Monday onwards. We know that the low pressure system is out here on Monday, so it's already been through these parts here, so that's no longer a factor in terms of what this is forecasting. Instead, this is the remains of the next cyclone moving across the northern parts and not coming into the south. You can see the clear demarcation line there between dry and wet. So it's this next one is definitely moving across the north. It's not coming into the south. Any of these systems that are trying to come across the south, again, hitting into that high pressure, acting as a block. It's a big buffer. It's a big area saying, no, low pressure, you can't come here. And so it is just grazing the coastline and not heading in any further inland. Yes, moving into those parts of Tasmania. So that's our situation for next week. In terms of heat, we know we had a big heat thing in the last week in the southwest of the country. That is not the case next week. So no more of these days up near 40 degrees, no more day after day of that. We've got a very different pattern coming into the southwest. Again, we've got more of this cloud and rain that is moving across the interior and then into Queensland. So that produces a lot of cooler than average weather if you're underneath that cloud. Now, this shows that the cloud, etc., the cooler air, is extending into the southeast, but the rain is not. We know that. We saw on that pattern that it is not coming through thanks to high pressure. Instead, we will have some cooler than average weather as the overall thing for next week in the southeast of the country. All right, let's move ahead to week 2. That begins on Monday, the 7th of April. We're well into April now, and what is this showing us? Still activity up in the north. You would expect it. It's the very end of the wet season, so that's typical for this time of year. Is it making any connection to the south? On this map, it says no. So that means high pressure would still be in control. Have we got strong cold fronts coming up from the south? This tells us that no, that is not the case either. We've got our wet weather that is about north there. There is a hint that bits of it try and come down, but don't make it right through. There is a lot of either white or brown on that map, particularly in the south of the country, indicating that that tropical moisture isn't going to make a connection. That's for week 2, which starts on the 7th of April. In terms of temperature associated with that, still looking at cloud over these parts, so it is still looking at cooler than average across the north. We had our heat waves. We've now moved back into another period where we've got cloud and rain, and it's causing the opposite effect. Heat is likely to move back into the southwest. Now, we are on the 7th of April here, so it's not your summertime extreme heat, but that is certainly above average. And in the southeast, a bit of that looks to be coming in, but not quite all the way through. So that is what we're looking at for week 2. Let's have a look at our climate drivers. What might be causing this particular pattern in terms of what we see day by day? MJO, Madden-Julian oscillation, currently here. Map, what is it? It's a pulse of energy that travels around the tropics. When it's in our area, which is the green area, it helps enhance that connection between the moisture and the low pressure. So we've had that lovely connection. We've seen what that has done to Queensland as it has come through. It is likely to go into sort of no man's land over the next little bit. So there's no big, strong push. That's why we saw in week 2, we still had a bit of activity up there. It's that right time of year for it, but there's no strong push anywhere else. So that's kind of where we're going. It's likely to be a very weak back into no man's land as we move through April. So what this is telling you is the MJO is not a strong influencer of where we're going. It has been, but it's about to move into a period where it has much less influence. All right, let's have a look at SAM, which is our southern annular mode. This one, when it is in that top green part, that is when troughs and lows are in charge. When it is in that bottom green part, that's when strong cold fronts can come up from the Southern Ocean. We've been in positive, Last year, we were in positive for the majority of the autumn, winter, spring period. That meant that strong cold fronts couldn't come up, couldn't connect with that tropical moisture, and led to those drought conditions because high pressure was in charge. This is telling us that we're still in that pattern. At the moment, we're likely to remain in that pattern. So this says high pressure is likely to continue dominating. Even though we've got all of these sources of tropical moisture, they may not make it into the south because the low pressure can't get there. There is one exception to this rule, and we see it in action right, not there, right here. So let's go back through to here. Troughs and low pressure, they're in charge. It depends where they can go. High pressure is blocking the majority of the south, but it can still come in. Let's watch that move there, and then there, and then there as it comes in. So that's a low pressure system coming into that southern zone because it found a gap in the high pressure. That's another thing I want to point out here. The high goes into a bit of a jelly bean shape. That enables us to get that moisture in through there and the low pressure to be cradled, which means it moves slower, can deliver more rain. But if you're on that western side of that low, you're not going to see it because the high pressure is in charge. So that's just an example of how that can come down, but how other parts of the country still miss out. All right, so there is our SAM. Positive, was positive for a long time, likely to continue being positive. In order to make it rain, you've got to have two things work together. You have to have moisture and you have to have instability. This is telling us that the southern parts of Australia, high pressure is likely to be in charge, and troughs and lows are the feature of the day. If they can come in, we can get some good rain, but generally the high is going to block it. Okay, sea surface temperature anomaly. This is that moisture part of the equation. Let's start with the Indian Ocean. Actually, let's start with looking around Australia first of all. You will notice that all of this here is warmer than average. We have had this now for quite some time. It means that no matter what these global patterns are doing, are we in El Nino? Are we in La Nina? Are we in a negative Indian Ocean dipole or positive Indian Ocean dipole? Those big global drivers, we've got an offset or an enhancement to whatever they're saying. So when they stop the moisture coming from us, we go, hey, we've got our own source, thank you. It's just off the coast, and it's all of this warmer than average water. When they send more of that moisture in our direction, i.e. a La Nina in the Pacific or a negative Indian Ocean dipole in the Indian Ocean, so when they push that moisture here, we go, great, thanks for all your moisture. We've also got our own as well, so we've got extra moisture. So at the moment, around Australia, we've got our moisture. So tick, that part of the equation is a big tick no matter where you are. It's just whether we can actually get that to run into low pressure and turn that into rain where it is needed most. Now, looking further afield, in the Pacific, we have had a lot of blue in that box out through there. That was the weak La Nina that we went in over summer. Let's have a look here. This was our weak La Nina as we came through here. Now it has come out of it as we've been through the weeks and weeks just back through there. And so all of this blue, we had the yellows that were coming in here. In the last week, it stalled. It dropped back down just a little bit, but forecasts show that it is likely to keep going. Have a look at that. And you've got all of that warmer water that's under there that is ready to come up and replace that blue with warm water on the top. Now, when we go into, here we are, potentially El Nino later this year, this is showing that it is just glancing. It's just a glancing blow, not fully going into there. That's this particular model, and that is mid to later on in the year. That would indicate that in a normal world, we would have oranges in this box in through here. We would have cool blues off the coast of Queensland. We're not likely to see those cool blues off the coast of Queensland. If we do get that, do know that the moisture from the Pacific will stop. But otherwise, if we do go into this next El Nino, it'll be like the one we had last year, where it tried to stop that rain coming in, but we had our own source of moisture that offset the drying effects of that. So we're likely to go into drying effects from the Pacific near an El Nino, but we've got our own source of moisture to offset that. Let's have a look over at the Indian Ocean. Here we have our box out through there is looking very yellow. We've got off the coast of Indonesia here looking very blue. And so, yeah, we would expect, yes, that's gone up in through here. That's a positive Indian Ocean dipole. Over the summer, we don't care about this. As we go into autumn, we really start caring about this. So it's a time of year where we start caring about what the Indian Ocean dipole is doing. And it is back in here through at the moment. So at the moment, if you're looking for rain to come down into the southern parts of the country, just based on that Indian Ocean dipole alone, that one climate driver, this is telling us no. However, if we look at the sea surface temperature anomaly, we know that we've got all of this warm water, incredibly warmer than average water, which is off the northwest coast. That offsets the drying effects of that, so we've got our own source of moisture to take over instead. Now, looking further afield for this year, it's not likely to remain up through there, according to this weather model here. It's likely to come back down and potentially cross that as we go through the later part of winter and into the start of spring. That there means we've got lots of moisture being sent from the northwest, those juicy northwest cloud bands. Again, one part of that rain equation, it's the moisture part. It's a big, big tick. It's trying to push it towards us. The question is, will we still have that SAM sitting here in our positive kind of mode, stopping those big systems coming into the south, producing high pressure there instead, and not letting us get access to that rain? So that's the big question that we're facing this year. It looks like tick, yes, we're going to have a good amount of moisture, even if the Pacific goes into an El Nino or goes near it. Yes, we still have the moisture. The question is, where is it going to go if this remains quite positive? If it's positive, it's not likely to make it into the south because the high pressure blocks. Okay, so that's all of those. Let's now have a whip around the country. In Brisbane, rather wet, as you would imagine. Looking at this one here, we have got lots of rain that is in the area. So that is likely to continue today. I also want to point this out, 80 the entire way through. Well, we've got a 60 there, so there's one model that doesn't like it for that particular time step. That gives you, if you are sitting there in Brisbane today and trying to concrete, no, you can't do it. This is going to continue all day. All of the weather models are suggesting wet weather hour after hour after hour. Now, today, 17 millimetres on average across the different models. Tomorrow, 24, that's between 15 and 34 millimetres coming into southeast Queensland. Southeast Queensland is not in the main part of the path of this, but yes, it's still getting plenty of wet weather. You'll notice that it rapidly weakens as we move into Sunday here. So let's jump into Sunday. There we go. We'll have some dry periods in through there. The temperature will rise back up, and then there's not much there until we get to Wednesday next week, which is the next big weather system coming in. Okay, so that is for Brisbane. For Sydney, here we go. Today there is a bit of activity. It is coming in. It is on an easterly wind. Let's have a look at what we're looking at tomorrow. So 1 millimetre today, tomorrow 47 millimetres. So a rather large jump up there. Let's expand this out. 80, right across there until you get into the evening hours there when it is one weather model that says, nope, might be actually dry. So all of this is looking very wet for tomorrow. The range is 36 to 57. So that is locked and loaded that Sydney is likely to get a lot of wet weather tomorrow. Why? It's as that low pressure system moves through. You've got moisture, you've got instability, you're in the right spot. Yes, it is going to rain as that comes in. Now, 47 there, then we've got 5 and 4 as we go into Sunday and Monday. What is the difference here? It is much lighter totals that are coming in. That low now off the coast. So we've got the wraparound in through there, mainly affecting southeastern New South Wales and eastern parts of Victoria. So Sydney just right on the very edge of that. So yes, there's likely to be hour after hour of wet weather, but is it going to add up to much from Sunday onwards? No. Okay. Then we move back to not at all, and there's a 25 on the horizon. There you go. In Melbourne, today is the hot day. Winds are flicking northerly. They'll pick up shortly, and so we'll move into 30, 31. It lasts into the evening, and then it doesn't last much longer. So as we go into Saturday here, we know that that rain is going to be moving across northern parts of, so the low is coming in, so it's moving through northern parts of Victoria. There's the big Great Dividing Range in through there. Northern Victoria anyway isn't likely to be seeing widespread heavy falls, so it's the dregs, it's the remains, it's the very last little bit of what this has to offer that is coming across the ranges and coming into Melbourne. So yes, we're going to see the cloud tomorrow, but in terms of wet weather, there's probably going to be a little bit out there, but it's not likely to add up to much. Most of it is in the overnight hours as we go into Sunday morning. So on Sunday there, we know that that low is moving off the coast, so we'll be in a strong southeasterly as we go through Sunday and into Monday as well. So look out for that. Southeasterly winds in Melbourne, that's a weird direction for us. It doesn't need to be at that big 90 k's an hour to create damage. It can be slightly lower than that. So that is something to look out for as we go through Sunday, Monday, some trees down perhaps, because the trees aren't used to seeing it from a southeasterly. As we go through next week, it's just mild and there's hardly anything on the horizon. Okay. Looking at Adelaide, here we go. Today, it's the last of the warmth. There is 2 models that have a hint of something into the afternoon here. The other 2 models do not, otherwise we're fairly sunny. But there is a bit of a cool change coming in there. So Saturday now, just 27, and then we're down in the low to mid-20s. And then even later next week, there's some cooler weather coming up from the Southern Ocean, but you saw it, the rainfall from that barely gets across the coast, so it's only really light fall as it comes in. But you may have a day that is less than 20, and that is looking like next Thursday. Heading over into Perth, where it's been near 40. We've got a 35 today and tomorrow. On Sunday morning, that's when that weather system starts to move through. So around the 31, 34, Here we go into Wednesday, Thursday next week. Hello, is that low 20s that we're looking at? After that next change moves on through before it comes and grazes Adelaide and then Melbourne and Tasmania on its way out. There is the chance of some alpine snow on the horizon. Let's just have a look at this one here. I'll go straight to snow. And we'll load this in. Here we go. We've got a little bit of activity on that horizon based on, where is our weather modelling? Not this one, this one. So here's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Let's put the snow level thickness on there so we can see what's happening here. We've got some colder air that is coming up from the Southern Ocean Thursday. Friday, sort of here, yes, in Tasmania, snow, potentially. This is still a full week away, so the models aren't all saying the same thing, but if you like a bit of alpine snow, that is something to watch. I'll catch you next week.